Hello, everybody. Welcome to Let's Talk Football. My name is John Halpert alongside Chris Palmer. Chris Palmer, how are we doing today?
Doing good, man. Another exciting week in the books. You're at the halfway point. You know, everyone knows when it's the halfway point, it means it's the trade deadline. You know, what an exciting past couple of days, man.
Oh, man. So for those of you who did not know, this past week was the trade deadline on Tuesday. It ended at 4 p.m., and there were multiple teams that made trades to other teams for specific players. And we'll get into all of that a little later. But first, let's get into our Week 8 recap, starting with the Thursday night game, the Baltimore Ravens taking on the Tampa Bay Bucs and winning 27-22. Exercise those fourth quarter demons.
Good for you guys finally exercising the fourth quarter demons. And what a team to do it than on Tom Brady and the Buccaneers when they're down and they're out. Just put a little salt in their wounds. Good win for you guys. Much needed breath of relief.
We're on a 2-game win streak. Yeah. So let's move on to Sunday's slate of games, starting with the last London game of the year. The Denver Broncos coming away with a win over the Jacksonville Jaguars, 21-17. I don't think many people saw this win for the Broncos, but it was still a win nonetheless.
Yeah, I don't think either of us saw this one coming. You know, this was an interesting game to say the least. Jacksonville, you know, they're one of those teams, seeing how they're historically bad every time. They have showings where it's just, that's just the history of who they are. That's their culture, is mistakes and untouched past bad. It was just troublesome.
Jags are going to jag.
Right. Jags are going to jag, especially now at the halfway point of the season.
Oh, yeah. So let's move on to back in the States, starting with the Atlanta Falcons taking a win over the Carolina Panthers in a pretty incredible game that went to overtime. But the Falcons ultimately won 37-34. Oh, my God. If you did not see this game, please check out the highlights. This was one of those games that we talked about last week, and I don't think even we thought that this game would be as good as it was. We knew it was an important game, but this was a really fun game to watch, especially the last 30 seconds of regulation. P.J. Walker throws a Hail Mary to D.J. Moore. Incredible play, but D.J. Moore took his helmet off too soon, cost them an unsportsmanlike penalty, pushed the PAT back 15 yards, and the kicker missed. And that could have been the game.
Yeah, very well could have, and then it fast forwards into overtime, and he misses again, but this time it was from under 40 yards. So there was problems at Carolina in the end. You know, maturity-wise, though, you got to keep your helmet on. You know, you could have won that game in regulation.
He's not going to make that same mistake again. Hopefully not. But let's move on to Dallas, Texas, where the Chicago Bears took on the Dallas Cowboys, and the Cowboys won 49-29. Woo! What a game!
What a beating!
What a beating!
It was an absolute beating. Chicago did not belong on the field against Dallas. I had faith.
That Dallas defense is unlike anything we've seen in the modern era. I think give it 1 to 2 more years, that could be an elite defense. It's a great defense, but give it 1 to 2 more years, it will be elite.
Yeah, they had some issues earlier on in this season, and they've turned it around almost immediately, and now they're one of the best defenses in the league.
They are. They do have a flaw, though. Teams can run the ball on them, but I think give it another year or two's time, they will learn that. They're still young players, and once they kind of get that chemistry together, we're going to be seeing something special out of Dallas. But let's move on to the Motor City in Detroit, where the Miami Dolphins had to make a comeback to win against the Lions, but ultimately won 31-27. Tell me, how scary are the Dolphins?
The Dolphins are for real when Tua's on the field. It helps having Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill to throw to. Raheem Mostert in the backfield. That team is set up for success, and they're going to win a bunch of games. It's just the way it is. You know, it doesn't matter who they play. When Tua is healthy, they're just they're the best team on the field when they go out and when Tua's on the field.
Well, definitely a bit against some of the competition that they played against, especially even against the Ravens. I will say that they definitely were better than the Ravens that day when they played. But I will say this, though, it makes that second matchup between the Bills a lot more interesting because, man, it's going to be hard to stop Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. They are just too good of a duo, and they are just one of the most entertaining teams to watch. And Detroit's entertaining too, but the Dolphins may be a little bit more entertaining.
I'd say a lot more because they're finishing their entertainment with wins.
They're
winning games, so it's like now the hype is real for Miami.
You know who's another team that's been winning games? The Minnesota Vikings.
Yes,
they won another game this Sunday over the Arizona Cardinals, 34-26. Kirk Cousins getting it done.
Yeah, Kirk Cousins is true to form. He's going to throw a bunch of touchdowns and throw not many interceptions throughout the season. I was never high on Kirk Cousins, but he plays well. He plays really well. He plays well to win games and win games in good fashion.
Yeah, this was a good team win by the Vikings, and I can't wait to see them in the playoffs because that looks to be where they're headed. But let's move on to the Big Easy down in New Orleans, where the Saints just smacked the Raiders 24-0. Paul, I saw you just wipe your hand, put your hand on your head. Tell me, what are your thoughts on that?
You got to put some points on the board. You got shut out by Andy Dalton. Come on, man. It hurts to say this on camera. I am no longer voting for the Vikings to win the game this season.
No, the Raiders. The Raiders.
Yes, the Raiders. Sorry. I have no inclination to say that they're going to win a game. They got shut out. I can't believe it. Unbelievable. So many mistakes. I don't know what happened to them. Complete 180.
We will talk about the Raiders later on as the season goes on and say exactly what went wrong for them. But, man, they got a lot of problems in Vegas. But let's move on to a team where they got some problems back at home. The New York Jets losing to the New England Patriots 22-17. Classic Bill Belichick win, low-scoring affair, and just kind of controlling the whole game. But we're going to talk more about the Jets later on in this episode, but that was a bad loss for them.
Yeah, it's an ugly loss, but then you also got to chalk it up to Bill Belichick having 20 years' worth of material on playing the Jets and beating the Jets just like this. And also he picks apart young quarterbacks.
This was just to be expected, and we were both drinking the Kool-Aid last week on the Jets. But that was a good wake-up call for not only the team, but for us too. So
it was a good shot in the dark is what it was.
Yeah, so let's move on to another expected win. The Philadelphia Eagles beating the Steelers. We just kind of saw this. This was going to go exactly how we thought it was.
Yes, 100%. You have the best team in the NFC versus a rebuilding team. This was more than expected. We have issues, but AJ Brown, man, he's
having the best season of his career.
He's unfreaking believable. He really is.
He's phenomenal. Mm-hmm. And the Eagles are just proving that they are the best team in the league right now. But let's move on to Malik Willis in Houston getting his first win for the Tennessee Titans, 17-10. This was a good win for Malik Willis, but granted, he didn't do much. It was all King Henry. King Henry is looking back to form.
Yep, that chainsaw is finally revved up and ready to go, and it's funny that both the turnaround games that teams kind of needed was against Houston.
Yeah.
We said that Arizona needed a pick-me-up game. It was against Houston. Derrick Henry needed one more game before running for 200 yards. He was like, give me Houston. Very fun. It's fun to see Derrick Henry in full swing, and especially now that it's the second half of the year versus burning himself out in the beginning of the year.
Mm-hmm.
So now he has that in the tank going up until the end and probably into the playoffs if he plays like that.
We're going to see the best of Derrick Henry the rest of the season.
Yes.
But let's move on to Indianapolis, where the Washington Commanders beat the Colts 17-16. I don't think anyone really watched this game because these two teams are just struggling right now.
Yes.
But Taylor Heineke, another win.
It's funny that Washington wins under Taylor Heineke. It's funny to me.
They get Carson Wentz and they can't win with Carson Wentz. They keep Taylor Heineke. Oh, they're accidentally winning with Taylor Heineke
to win games. It's funny to me because Carson Wentz just isn't the answer. Never was, never will be.
Oh my God! So let's move on to the Los Angeles Rams losing to the San Francisco 49ers, 31-14. But the story of the day was Christian McCaffrey, who was the first player since LaDainian Tomlinson in 2005 to run for a touchdown, throw for a touchdown, and receive a touchdown, all in the same game.
Welcome to San Francisco.
Welcome to San Francisco.
And, we're going to move a little piece ahead of the battle for LA. What is happening to the Rams? Oh, my God. They did not belong on the field.
We are going to talk more about the Rams later on in this episode. They have a very crucial game this upcoming week against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So this is going to be a very important game for the Rams going forward. But let's talk about their NFC West divisional leaders, the Seattle Seahawks, 5-3 for the season, beating the New York Giants, who were red hot going into this game. But Geno Smith getting it done, 27-13. Whoo! Tell me, do the Giants come back down to earth, or are the Seahawks just that good?
I don't know. See, this was a head scratcher. This is something that we've kind of been saying throughout the recap, is that no one really saw this coming out of Seattle. No one thought this was going to happen. And same thing on the other side. No one thought this was going to come out of the Giants. But for the Giants to hit a screeching halt like that, you got to hope that they shake it off and they can keep moving, or they might get left behind. In Seattle, maybe they're for real.
It's starting to look like they are. It really is.
Maybe they are for real.
But you know who's a team that's not for real? The Green Bay Packers. Losing to the Buffalo Bills 27-17. It wasn't as big a blowout as we thought, but man, it was a rough day for the Packers.
It was just a bunch of problems. It was just a total mismatch. Green Bay does not belong on the field with Buffalo.
Absolutely not.
You can definitely understand why they would make this a game to put on primetime. Buffalo, Green Bay, Aaron Rodgers, the Hall of Famer, versus Josh Allen, the potential future Hall of Famer. Yeah, you understand for TV purposes. Football-wise, they didn't stand a chance.
Packers are not the team that we thought they were going into this year, but they have a lot of problems to deal with during this season, and it's going to be a long season for the Packers. Mm-hmm. But let's move on to the Monday night game, the final game on Halloween. Lots of tricks, lots of treats, but I think the biggest surprise was the Browns getting the win over the Bengals, 32-13. Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt cannot be stopped, but man, it was all about that pass rush on Joe Burrow, man. He cannot deal with Myles Garrett and that pass rush.
He can't deal with anybody in their pass rush. That offensive line is killing him.
It is. It really is.
Absolutely killing him. 29 sacks on the season? Come on. Can't do that.
It's too much, but the Bengals are another team where they're very talented, but they have a fatal flaw. They just cannot stop the pass rush. And you feel for Joe Burrow, but hopefully this is something that they can rectify throughout the season. But that was week 8. But man, let's move on to our trade deadline recap. We have been dying to talk about this. This was something that we wanted to make sure that we talked about it. And but man, so this past week, we are recording on Wednesday, November 2nd. The trade deadline was yesterday, November 1st at 4 p.m. Now, the trade deadline, for those of you who may not know, is basically this is the final day that you could trade openly with the team. After this day, from here on out going forward, you cannot trade with another team. You could pick players up from free agency, where teams there that don't have any contracts to specific teams, other teams can still pick them up.
Right.
But for the time being, teams made some big moves, and let's talk about some of these big moves. So, I got you right here, baby. I got the big moves right here. So let's start. I want to start with my Baltimore Ravens taking the Bears middle linebacker Roquan Smith.
Absolute stud.
Roquan Smith. We're going to talk more about the Bears later on. They actually play the Dolphins later on, and that's one of the most interesting matchups this upcoming week, and we'll discuss why. But it's even more interesting because the Ravens literally just took the Bears' best player.
Yeah, without a doubt.
He is the Bears' best player, and obviously the Bears have always drafted with a defensive-minded approach, and they drafted Roquan Smith a couple years ago with that mindset, and he's proven over time to be the best player for them. And the Ravens have been struggling at the middle linebacker position. Tyus Bowser, who's been in and out, Patrick Queen, and Josh Bynes have just not been getting it done in the middle linebacker position. We also have issues at cornerback. I mean, me personally, I don't understand why Marcus Peters is still with us, but that's neither here nor there. But you get Roquan Smith, who is a short-term solution. But basically, the Ravens are saying, look, we can win. Like, we could win. Theoretically, we could have won every game that we lost, because we led every single game that we lost. And we are good enough to be the best, like to compete against the best teams. Even the Bills, as we suspect the Bills to be the juggernauts that they are. We still led the Bills, but we just kept our defense just kept giving up leads, giving up leads, and our offense stalled out. Now you put that emphasis on defense, and at the heart of defense, who is Roquan Smith. He's an all-purpose linebacker. He could take the ball away. He has the most tackles for the Bears this season, and he's a great run stop. So you have a versatile middle linebacker coming into the perfect situation.
Oh, you're 100% right. I agree with you. It's the perfect situation. Roquan Smith is a huge piece for Baltimore. When his name came up to be rumored, I wanted Pittsburgh to make a move for him, just to have him. You know, that's just someone that you want. He's ready to make plays. He's ready to make a difference on a defense. And for him to go to Baltimore, now I have to play him twice a year, especially this year because we haven't even played yet once.
Mm-hmm.
That's insanity to me.
It's
absolute insanity. Great pickup for Baltimore. And I'm pretty sure they picked him up for almost nothing.
A second round and a fifth round draft pick. And A.J. Klein. So
that's not much.
That's not much.
For a Pro Bowl linebacker like that? Come on now.
Yeah, so it was a great move by the Ravens. I'm just going to go through this list real quick of all the other players. So Chase Claypool for the Steelers went to the Bears. So the Bears are actually like making moves right now. Surprisingly, they got him for a second-round pick. So Chase Claypool is from a Steeler to a Chicago Bear. Bradley Chubb, the outside linebacker for the Denver Broncos, was traded to Miami, and the Miami Dolphins bolster that defense for again almost nothing. A first-round draft pick, but they have another one as well. They have, I believe, they have another first-round draft pick as well.
I don't think they do.
Oh, maybe not.
No, I'm pretty sure I looked it up the other day. That was the one they got from San Francisco.
Oh, you're right.
So
you're right.
Now they don't have a first-round draft pick. They don't have a pick until the second round this year now.
But you have a great outside linebacker.
Understandably so, but you know me. You got to hold your first-round draft picks tight to the chest. That's the way I feel. I understand where you're going with this huge pick. Bradley Chubb is, again, a Pro Bowl linebacker. He's going to help elevate that team in the locker room, on the field. He's going to make plays, make huge stops. was it worth a first-round draft pick?
Me
Your
personally,
only
I believe
first-round
so.
draft pick.
I believe so because it's a guaranteed starter for
Understood.
a position that is needed.
Fair, but you got to also look at longevity of the franchise.
Of course.
So, and you also got to look at replacement, God forbid, injury. So, I always feel your first-round draft picks is where you can get more so your guaranteed starters unless they're an absolute bust. More often than not, you're going to start your first-round draft pick. Because we got you in the first round. That's who we need. So, going to be interesting to see him in Miami.
It was a great pickup for the Dolphins. The Dolphins also picked up running back from the San Francisco 49ers, Jeff Wilson Jr. Not surprising because Mike McDaniel, from the head coach of Miami, is from that Kyle Shanahan tree, so their offensive philosophy derives from the Shanahan coaching tree. So that's not surprising that they're doing business with one another. But let's move down the list as well. So last week, the Cowboys actually picked up Jonathan Hankins from Vegas for, I believe, like a fifth-round pick or something like that. Robert Quinn went from the Bears to the Eagles. So
the Eagles making their team just that much better.
Teams that that's the thing. We're seeing a trend now. The teams that believe that they can win now are the ones that are trading for players. Let's continue. The Vikings pick up T.J. Hawkinson from Detroit.
That's nice, but if I could just backtrack to Philly for just 1 second.
Okay.
They still have their first-round draft pick, too.
Yes.
They have a number 6 overall at this point in time.
Well, that one you keep to the chest.
Oh, for sure. But the San Francisco one was a lotto pick as well. I think it was like number 7 or 8. So, that's the same situation.
Well, I think it's different because for Chubb, he's going to, like you're talking about with Chubb in Miami, and I believe it's contextually different, and this is how I see it: is like Chubb, you're getting the guaranteed starter.
Mm-hmm.
Quinn, he's a rotational player, and that's the thing is you're not going to give up, obviously, and it's not a position of necessity because their defensive line is already great.
Right.
So this is again more so like to add a player for depth rather than a starter that you're going to lean on. But I see what you're saying with like the value of draft picks as opposed to players, and that's something that teams have to come to reckon with, is understanding is like do we want to get players, trade for players that we believe that we can win right now, or do we hold on to our draft picks and for a better opportunity in the future going forward?
Right.
So, but T.J. Hawkinson to the Minnesota.
Love it.
They think they could win now. That's a great move by them. What was it? Calvin Ridley from the Falcons to the Jags. That's a future move because he's suspended this year.
Yeah. But suspended indefinitely. They didn't ever set up when he can come back.
No, it's just a 1-year suspension. Just
indefinitely.
No, just for this 1 year. But last week the Giants also got rid of Kadarius Toney to the Kansas City Chiefs. Again, depth. Adding depth to an already good wide receiving core. You also get Nyheim Hines from the Indianapolis Colts to the Buffalo Bills. Again, another depth pick, but they don't really run the ball well. I would like to see Nyheim Hines get utilized a little bit more in Buffalo.
That could be more of a win now pick for them because of their lack of run game.
They do need to improve on their running game, and I think this definitely addresses that. Mm-hmm. And then finally, your Steelers actually picked up Willie Jackson.
William Jackson III from Washington.
From Washington. Again, another position where we talked about this before. Your cornerbacks are not really that good, but this is, again, depth and rotation. You're not going to have Witherspoon on the field that much, especially after getting cooked by A.J. Brown.
No, absolutely not.
But you keep rotating players. You keep a cycle in. You keep everyone that whenever they come cornerbacks or positions that require rotation, they step off the field and so that they come back on the field fresh and ready to go.
Yeah. I'm excited to see him. I'm sad to see Claypool go, but I hope he does well in Chicago.
Now, let me ask you, looking at this list, tell me, out of all the moves made, what do you think is the biggest move made by a team?
Biggest move or biggest steal?
Biggest move.
Probably Roquan Smith to Baltimore. I think that's the biggest move of the trade deadline. Number 2 would definitely be Bradley Chubb to Miami. But to me, the biggest steal is Claypool to Chicago. Because they got him for nothing. I think it was a late second or a late third round draft pick they got him for. The dude is going to be an animal in Chicago.
And doesn't he have one more year on his contract?
I think so, yeah. But on the flip side of that coin, he outright said he had no desire to be a number 1 receiver.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to see how that's going to have to play out in Chicago. Because if he's just the best man on the field, he doesn't want to be number 1, that's just going to cause issues.
Keep giving the ball to George Pickens. He's going to make plays.
Right. Give the ball to George. I'm talking about in Chicago now.
In Chicago, you're going to split the targets between him and Darnell Mooney. And I think that would be a good 1 and 1A combo, but you give your offense a fighting chance now.
Yeah, you do.
And I think the Bears, they're the number 1 rushing team in the league, and for good reason. But this gives them that outside depth. And we'll talk a little bit more about the Bears. Actually, we could talk about them now because they play the Miami Dolphins this upcoming week.
Yes, they do.
So this upcoming week, the Bears actually play the Miami Dolphins. And so this is probably – we're going to see exactly how the Bears are going to look after all these trade moves. So they got rid of Robert Quinn, Roquan Smith, and they added Chase Claypool. So this Bears team is going to look maybe a little different than it did when a couple weeks ago when they played against the Patriots. And that was probably their best game of the season, was that game against the Patriots. That Monday night game where they just kept running the ball for over 200 yards. And you got to see the best of what the Bears can be. And I think with their picks, they're like, look, we know that the best that we can be, we're not going to be able to get those games this season. But Claypool helps out, and he's young enough that we can re-sign him. If his contract expires, we can re-sign him for next year, keep Darnell Mooney, and then we have a lot of picks to work with. You have a first round, 2 second-round picks, a third, 2 fourth-round picks, 2 fifth-round picks.
So loaded this year with draft picks.
Right now, the Bears are looking to invest in the future. Not so much this year, but in the future going forward. But at this point in time, they're still – if the team sleeps on them, the Bears can actually come away with a good win. And we know Miami's not going to sleep on the Bears. We know that. But, man, I think the Bears, for this season and this game in particular, they may have shot themselves in the foot just for this game, because we talked about it before where Joe Burrow was sacked 29 times. Justin Fields is actually the most sacked quarterback in the league.
Yep, 31 times.
31. He was sacked 31 times this week. That's crazy to think about.
You want to talk about all them draft picks, you better be looking at some offensive linemen.
You need offensive linemen?
You need offensive linemen.
Oh, yeah. By the way, Miami also picked up Bradley Chubb.
Right. So guess what? Guess who's probably going to get untouched looks at your quarterback? It's not going to be pretty.
This game is really going to show how these teams are going to look after the trade deadline. This is probably the perfect game to look at these teams and be like, okay, look, this is a team that Miami's a team that's looking to win now. The Bears are looking to win in the future. And so we are going to really see these teams. It's like, okay, what are their plans going forward? And probably in 4 years' time when they play each other, maybe 2 years' time, depending on how the schedule works out, but they do play again in 4 years' time because AFC, NFC. These two teams will be completely different come 4 years' time.
Sure.
So from where they are going into this weekend. So let's see if the picks that the Bears made for all these trades this past week, let's see if they were worth it.
Well, you and I actually, it's funny, we spoke about these two teams, how they were completely different, like polar opposites when it comes to quarterback situations, where Tua was put into a situation to succeed, and Justin Fields he's struggling. But, now you kind of see the blueprint for what's going on in Chicago. So they found their guy quarterback. That's great. They have their running back. I believe it's DJ Montgomery still, correct?
David Montgomery.
David
yes.
Montgomery.
Mm-hmm.
So he's great. Now you put in Chase Claypool and you have a bunch of picks. Go get yourself a tight end and get yourself a bunch of linemen.
Specifically linemen.
Linemen. You have to find a lineman. You cannot have your star quarterback sacked 31 times in 8 weeks. You cannot do it. That sounds identical to freaking Andrew Luck. For both him and for Joe Burrow. That cannot happen anymore. It's unfortunate for Cincinnati. They blew $75 million for the same thing to have in his last season. On Chicago's side, they have the draft picks to help them. They don't have to spend that much money to potentially have to swipe and repeat.
Well, also consider this. Chicago will also have about $100 million in caps for cap next year. So they'll have free cap space. So that means this offseason, expect the Bears to make moves.
Yes.
The Bears are looking to make moves this offseason. What they should do is whoever the best offensive linemen are in free agency, get the best left tackle.
Get them.
Get the best left tackle. Get the best center on the market, because those will be veteran guys that will know how to protect a quarterback.
And they'll teach your young guys.
Also draft linemen too, because the best thing the Bears can do is invest in an offensive line. The worst thing they can do is neglect their offensive line. It doesn't matter how great Justin Fields is, and we've seen it in flashes this year. We haven't seen it consistently, but we've seen Justin Fields in flashes where it's like, wow, he's just the best player on the field. But it's not always throughout the entirety of the game. But it's like when he has those plays, man, like that. Again, referring back to that Monday night against the Patriots, it's like he could not be stopped.
Right.
And
couldn't be stopped.
And the Bears, it's like, look, that may have been the turning point for them, for the organization to say, like, okay, look, we want to invest in him.
You better.
Because it took Miami a long time to decide to invest in Tua, which was a shame because they should have invested in him
2 seasons
ago. 2 seasons ago.
Right. Now, keep this in mind. 2 seasons ago, we were talking off air that it was Miami and Philly who needed to get it together and invest in their quarterbacks with Jalen Hurts and Tua.
Mm-hmm.
Philly invested. Miami was still on the bridge. Look at where they are now.
They're both invested heavy in their quarterbacks.
But Philly did it first, and they're the best team in football.
They did it a season earlier when Nick Sirianni came in last year. Philly was like, okay, what can our guys do? We can run the ball extremely well. You know what? We're going to do that. We're going to have great offensive line play. And Philly's one of those teams where they are built on both sides of the ball from the line back. Mm-hmm. And they have the best offensive line, and they have a top 5 defensive line. And I think that for teams that's what you should look at. Invest in a great offensive line and a great defensive line, and you can win a shitload of games.
Yeah.
Miami, though, they do need a little bit better of an offensive line. Teron Armstead, that was a good pickup. I think they need a better guard, a better right guard, because their run game is just not where it needs to be. They have Raheem Mostert. That was a good pickup, but they got rid of Chase Edmonds, but they also picked up Jeff Wilson.
Right.
So we're going to see a lot of new faces for the Dolphins and the Bears this week.
Yeah, this is going to be a pretty fun game to watch. There might be some fireworks coming from this game. If the Bears can somehow figure out a way to stop that front seven and let Justin Fields set his feet and throw to Claypool, could be fun to watch. I
think this will be a fun game.
I mean, a very entertaining game. And in flashes, you're going to see the Bears. You're going to look at them and be like, they could be something if they just invest. That's going to be the big thing. You're going to want to look for progression, and you're going to want to see exactly where their issues are, and they're all in the offensive line.
Absolutely. So this is going to be a fun game to watch.
I'm excited for this game.
So let's move on to another game that we wanted to discuss. The Buffalo Bills against the New York Jets. Now we were talking about this off air before we started this week. This is the turning point of the season for the Jets. Last week against the Patriots, that was the wake-up call. And now this is where the season turns. Because, okay, let's be honest here. Let's be extremely honest here. Jets are not winning this game.
No.
They are not winning this game against the Bills. How they lose is going to be interesting. Is going to be interesting. If they can keep it close and not give up, then okay, the Jets have a good chance. But they play in these upcoming weeks. After this week, they have their bye week. They come back. They play the Patriots in Foxborough. Then after that, they play Minnesota. And then they play Buffalo again.
Yeah, no. This is where it gets harder for them. This is the unraveling of New York.
Oh, I'm sorry. After the Patriots, they play Chicago. So they
might squeak a win depending on how the players start to play.
So after this week, it's their bye week, Patriots, Chicago, Minnesota, Buffalo.
Yeah.
Man, that I see
maybe 1 and 4.
If they can, yeah, I see 1 and 4, honestly. And 1 and 4, that brings you to 6 and 7. And this is where
3 divisional losses.
This is where big divisional losses.
Big divisional losses.
And so this is where their season's going to turn. They're going to go into this bye week on a 2-game losing streak, and then they may come out. But let's ask ourselves why? What happened to the Jets? Palmer, what do you see that happened to the Jets?
I mean, it's just the same old thing. They get kind of too full of themselves. We all were drinking the Kool-Aid for the Jets, but even the players were. They thought that they could go in and pure talent. It's fundamental issues all over again. Again, it's a historically bad team that's starting to get better, but in the midst of everything, you still see glimpses of how they've been historically bad. When it comes to problems on the offensive line, fundamental issues as for going off sides, late penalties, just doing things that should not be done for a progressing team. You have a very young quarterback, and they're still young, inexperienced. It's very, very pretty clear cut for the Jets that it's a lot of young players. They need a lot of time to build.
I think this past game against the Patriots showed that Zach Wilson's not the guy. And I will make that.
Is playing Bill Belichick the answer? Like, Bill Belichick eats rookies.
It's not necessarily Bill Belichick. It's the fact that we've seen Zach Wilson win some games where he's an underdog. It's like, oh shit, we didn't expect him to win. Like last year specifically when they played against the Titans, who ultimately were the number 1 seed. The Jets beat the Titans last year. And they actually won a couple games this year where it's like, oh, they got some good wins. They got against the Browns. That was a good win. The Packers, the Dolphins without Tua. And so it's like, okay, the Jets are, they're winning games. That's like, okay, then we expected to. Like, no one going into this year would have expected them to beat the Packers. But the Packers are playing subpar.
Subpar is an understatement.
The Dolphins were without Tua.
They were at a huge disadvantage.
The Browns are the Browns.
Another historically bad franchise that has good pieces.
And you look at the teams that they lost against. They lost against the Ravens, the Bengals, and the Patriots.
All teams that are ready to play.
All teams that are competitive, playoff caliber teams. And I think that the teams that they've beat are not playoff caliber teams.
Where they stood, because Miami's a playoff team.
Miami, yeah. When they play Miami the second time around, it's going to be a completely different game because Tua is going to be healthy and they just can't stop Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. So Miami won't be playing their third string quarterback.
Right, it won't be a third string.
So that game will be completely different. But the Jets, this is where I think that for Zach Wilson, no matter – he's going to be the second best quarterback on the field, no matter who he plays against. And I think that Zach Wilson, he's just not the guy that can do it. I feel that coaches can out-scheme him. He can't read defenses properly. And the AFC runs deep. There's just so many great teams in the AFC, and 3 of them are in his division. So at best, it's like he could probably be the 3rd best quarterback in his own division. At best. But in the whole AFC, it's like, no way are the Jets ever going to really make a deep playoff run and go against toe-to-toe against the Chiefs, the Bills, the Ravens, the Bengals. Probably not now against the Titans, but the Titans are another team where we're going to talk about them later, where they're like, I don't know what the fuck to expect from them. But the Jets, they're really coming back down to earth. Again, they have a good core. They drafted well. But after this season, I think it's really the Jets management has to ask themselves, like, did we make a mistake on Zach Wilson?
Well, again, it wasn't the year for a quarterback. It just wasn't.
No, but
it was not.
But they had the 2nd overall pick. They could have got Justin Fields. They
screwed the pooch not getting him. I will always say that.
And you look
Justin,
no. How would Justin Fields look if he was on the Jets?
Just as bad.
But with Justin Fields' ability to run and the investment in the run game the Jets made, the Jets would be probably a top 3 running team in the league if they drafted Justin Fields. You put him with Breece Hall and Michael Carter. It's like, holy crap! Like that's.
Yeah, but then same situations, you lose Breece Hall, and then you start.
Well, Breece Hall was this year.
Well, didn't he get injured not too long ago?
He did, yes, but he has proven that he is
he's a stud.
He is a stud running back.
Listen, Breece Hall is soon to be a top 5 running back in the league. It's going to happen.
Next year it will happen.
Okay.
Next year it will. He will have his breakout year.
I can see it.
But Zach Wilson, I just don't think he's the guy.
He's like another Daniel Jones.
Yeah.
Just a run-of-the-mill quarterback. Like, I'm going to do what I can, and it's probably not going to be enough. He's a run-of-the-mill quarterback. He's a Ryan Tannehill.
Man, what would the Bills look like if they had the Jets running game too? The Bills. Now, we talked a lot about the Jets so far. I just want to briefly talk about the Bills. Yes, they're still the juggernauts that we think they are. They need to run the ball more. Mm-hmm. They just need to run the ball more. That if they don't run the ball more, they're letting teams come back into games. Because think about it this week: if that Bills-Chiefs game, the Chiefs still had the chance to win. Mahomes just threw a pick. But the Bills, they allowed them to get back in that game.
Right.
For the Packers, the Bills stagnated at 24 points for a majority of the game. If they play against, say, the Chiefs or the Bengals or the Ravens or a team that we know can just get 14, 17, 21 points like that, the Bills are going to have a tough time. It's because they're not killing clock running the ball.
Right.
The Bills need to do that because and it seems like they're inevitably going to play the Chiefs again in the playoffs. It just feels like that's how the season's heading, where it's just they're going to see each other again. whatever round, it doesn't matter.
I feel like that's just going to wind up being the AFC Championship
Probably.
for the next couple of years.
But
it's going to be the Titans right there, and that's going to be that.
It's going to be the Chiefs and Bills. They're going to see each other again, but it's going to be different because the Chiefs will still have the opportunity to come back into that game.
Yeah.
And that's going to be scary to think about. And I hope the Bills make those adjustments as the season goes on. This game against the Jets is a good game to at least keep establishing a running game. You did a good job with Devin Singletary last game and not relying on Josh Allen as your primary runner. The Bills need to keep establishing Devin Singletary. And now with Nakeem Hines too, you have that as a good 1-2 punch. Use them. You give them touches. Give Devin Singletary at least 20 attempts a game.
Yeah. That's what it's going to take, especially to beat the Jets, because the Jets is a poor run stop. The only real run stop they have are the Williams brothers.
Yeah.
Other than that, this is a total outmatch. Jets are entertaining. Bills are for real. Bills are coming to win a championship.
Yeah.
So this is going to be ugly.
Oh man! So let's move on to an NFC matchup where it's going to be another ugly game, but it's the Bucs and the Rams in what looks to be an elimination game. It's the halfway point of the season, and it's an elimination game.
Yes, it is. It's almost poetic that Tom Brady's having his worst career year since 2002 record-wise on his team. And he's playing the Rams, who are coming off of a Super Bowl win and are playing just as bad. So this game has a whole lot of question marks up in the air as to who's going to miss the playoffs. And both of them could probably miss the playoffs this year.
Yeah.
So it's almost poetic to me that both of these teams are probably going to miss the playoffs this year.
Well, whoever loses this game probably will, because if the Bucs lose, they fall to 3-6. If the Rams lose, they fall to 3-5. They had their bye week previously. But man, the Bucs division is more winnable. But man, 3-6, that's hard to come by. That's really
hard to come back from.
That's really hard to come back from. And for the Rams, it's like 3-5. Yeah, that's not too bad, but they have a really tough schedule ahead of them. And it doesn't help that they're in a really tough division with the Seahawks, the Niners, who swept them, and and the Cardinals. And the Seahawks are for real. And they have yet to play the Seahawks, too. So that's going to be a really tough schedule going forward. They do have a couple winnable games in Las Vegas and Denver, because those teams are underperforming as well. But man, this game against the Bucs, it's like you got to get it together. Run the ball, God damn it! Please just run the ball.
Run the ball a little bit.
Run the ball a little, and same could be said for the Bucs, because I want to give you a stat. So, the Thursday night game, the Bucs and the Ravens, the Bucs' first drive, they ran it 5 times. The rest of the game, they ran it 8 times.
That's pathetic. But that's what that really is. That's Tom Brady. That's Tom Brady.
Is it?
It's Tom Brady, and the coach is laying back. Like, it's him saying, "I want to run these plays."
It's Tom Brady and Byron Leftwich.
Correct. They're both in it. They're both mutually guilty. It's Byron Leftwich letting the 20 plus year vet say what he wants to do, and your 20 plus year old vet going, "I'm going to throw the ball," and that's all he's going to do.
The Bucs are actually dead last in rushing attempts this season, and they're actually dead last in yards per attempt.
Wow.
At 3 yards per attempt. So not only do they not even try to run the ball,
they can't run the ball.
They can't run the ball. And so obviously their offensive line has a lot to do with it. Both of these teams actually have their biggest weakness and biggest flaws are the same, where you're relying on an older quarterback to throw to receivers, but your offensive line is hurt and you can't run the ball to alleviate the pressure on your older quarterback.
Right.
Now Brady, again, record-wise, he's having a bad season. But statistically, it's not like he has 2,257 yards, 9 touchdowns, 1 pick. Okay, he's got the yards. He's throwing the ball well. They're not cashing in. They're just not cashing out on touchdowns. I didn't even look at their rushing touchdowns, but I'm guessing it's probably under 5 if I had to guess.
It's not many. Whatever it is, it's not many.
It's not many. But for the Rams, Matt Stafford has about 500 yards less than Tom Brady. He has 1,700 yards, 7 touchdowns, less touchdowns, and 8 interceptions. So they're not cashing in, and they're turning it over more.
Yeah, and they turn the ball over. So they're both playing at like peak lows right now. This is the worst Rams team we've seen in a long time.
Oh, man. And the sad part is they have a top 5 defense. But their offense is really bad. And same for the Bucs. The Bucs have a good defense. They're just not performing offensively. And that game against the Ravens, even though it was a 1-possession game at the end, come the second half, it wasn't really close.
Right.
It was not even close. But man, it feels like whoever really loses this game is not making the playoffs. But whoever wins this, you still have a chance. A chance.
I don't know. I understand and respect where you're coming from, that whoever wins this record-wise, they still have a chance. They're not playing well.
They're not.
So if whoever wins this game, the team that lost just played worse. You know, it's not going to be a game of who played better. It's going to be a game of who played worse. And it's unfortunate to look at these two teams and think that the Rams won the Super Bowl last year.
They're a completely different team this year than they were last year.
There's a lot of that going around this year.
Oh, yeah.
It's a sickness this year.
But, man, any final thoughts on this game?
This game's going to be it's almost going to be depressing to watch this game.
It's going to be ugly.
This game is going to be very ugly to watch.
Very ugly. So let's move on to the final game we wanted to talk about. The Sunday night primetime, the Kansas City Chiefs and the Tennessee Titans. The Chiefs are coming off their bye week, and Tennessee is now looking like the team that we expected them to be. Is Malik Willis starting this game?
I would hope so.
Okay.
I'm not sure, but I think so. Pretty sure he still has to start. I like what I saw out of him. 6 for 10, 55 yards and a pick. It's unfortunate that he didn't get in the end zone, but who knows? It should be it's fun to watch, but you didn't need him because all rise for Derrick Henry.
Yeah, it's Derrick Henry is just one of those trucks that you just cannot stop. And right now he's got full momentum right now where he's had consecutive 100-yard rushing games for 4 games in a row now.
That's nuts. And now this is his 4th game against Houston where he's rushed for 200-plus yards.
Houston?
Last week.
Houston.
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 They played Houston.
But man, this is the game that, again, we've talked about Derrick Henry before. He's one of those running backs where he's a chainsaw. You got to give him you got to rev it up a little bit, and then before you know it, once he's getting going,
he needs one good pull, and then that's it.
That's it. He's just going to break through. You said Malik Willis, he was 6 for 10. He only had 10 passing attempts in this game. You know why? Because they ran it 30 times with Derrick Henry. It's like, of course, if you run it for 30 times with Derrick Henry, you're going to get 200 yards and get absolutely smoked. But he's got 7 touchdowns this year.
If you can't be stopped, you can't be stopped.
The Chiefs are going to have a tough time stopping him. It's going to be, can Derrick Henry run as fast as the Chiefs score? That's the question, because we know the Chiefs are going to put up points. Can Derrick Henry, because he is that entire offense, he is that whole offense now at this point, can he do enough to help the Titans win this game? And I'm not sure if he could do it alone. But, I mean, we've seen it before where he's just had 3 touchdowns in a game and, like, he's just controlled the whole game. But, man, the Chiefs, Mahomes looks to have an MVP caliber year right now.
Yeah. Mahomes is on a different level. MVP caliber year. Do I think Derrick Henry can do it alone? Probably not. Hopefully Malik Willis gets another start and, he could start presenting himself as the future of this franchise alongside Derrick Henry.
Mm-hmm.
Derrick Henry for sure cannot do it alone. If they find their piece with Malik Willis, now it's stay healthy, go into the end of the season, and then the offseason pick someone up and find a weapon. Get yourself a weapon. The Chiefs are on a different level. Chiefs are on a different level this year. Mahomes, MVP caliber year. That defense doesn't stand a chance.
Mahomes has over 2,000 yards with 20 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. And this is without Tyreek Hill. And who would have thought that with Tyreek Hill going to Miami, that both him and Mahomes would be having their best careers, the best seasons of their careers yet without each other. That's crazy to think about.
That's just greatness is what it is.
It just shows how great those two players were and still are. But they didn't necessarily need one another because they were going to flourish without each other regardless.
Well,
and
yeah.
I'm just happy that Mahomes can do it with players that have been just other pieces for different teams. Like he's doing it with Juju Smith-Schuster. He's doing it with Marquez Valdez-Scantling. He's now doing it. He's going to do it with Kadarius Toney, Jerick McKinnon from the Vikings. You still have Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Travis Kelce, your homegrown players.
Mm-hmm.
But you still have Sky Moore, who is now a homegrown player as well. So you have your homegrowns, but yet you still sprinkle in players that are vets and know how to work the system. And Andy Reid, he's just one of the best coaches in the league, man.
Actively, for sure. He's one of 3 when it comes to the level of coach that he is. It's Andy Reid, Bill Belichick, Mike Tomlin in the elite tier of coach right now.
I put John Harbaugh there, but that's just me.
Arguable, but we go back and forth on that to nausea.
But nevertheless, Andy Reid, this is the Chiefs coming off the bye week, and they are 19-3 off their bye week. So,
this could possibly be game of the week. Going to be a very exciting game to watch.
I think this is going to be this game is going to showcase why it deserves to be on primetime, because the Titans, as one-trick pony as they are, they win games. They win games.
Yeah. And
so I wouldn't put it past them. Can they win this game? Of course they can win this game, because think of it like this. The Raiders, they could have won that game against the Chiefs if they would have kept giving the ball to Josh Jacobs.
Yep.
They ran that ball so well against the Chiefs, and the Chiefs cannot stop the run. The Chiefs are not going to stop Derrick Henry. That's the thing. That's for damn sure. Like, they are not going to stop Derrick Henry.
No, he's going to have his all game, and now all they need after that is just a little bit more. You get a Derrick Henry touchdown, you got to get it. You got to get in the end zone without him.
Yeah.
At least once. Just once. You put up 4 touchdowns against the Chiefs, maybe it'll be enough.
Yeah, that's the thing, is the Titans need help. As much as that their offense revolves around Henry, they can't be too one-trick pony, because they're going to come across teams that are just going to stop him. And the teams that have a good defensive line, and we've seen it before. We've seen it from the Ravens, the Bills, and all these other teams where it's the Giants did it this year. You stop him at the line of scrimmage, because if he gets into the secondary, he's just going to burn and smoke and stiff arm everyone in his path.
Well, yeah.
Most of the time. So, but he can't do it alone. Can Malik Willis get the ball to their receivers and give them yards and give them opportunities to make play? So, but this is going to be This is going to be a great game.
This is the defense to have Malik Willis go out and throw the ball. Just like last year, Chiefs give up a lot of yards.
This is the game for them to
Find
develop a play action game.
Mm-hmm.
You keep running the ball and don't give up running the ball against the Chiefs, but you make sure that's like, don't be one trick pony. If they expect to pass, if they expect to run, take that opportunity. Do that play action.
And it's also going to be a showing out game where if Malik Willis does play, he plays well, he'll play the rest of the season. Now they have their future in Tennessee.
It's a big if.
He has to play right. He has to play out. He has to have a good game. That's even, again, the biggest if is if he's playing.
If he's playing.
If Ryan Tannehill comes back, that's his team. But unfortunately, that's the downfall of the Titans. He plays well enough to get you there. Doesn't have an it factor. He's another one of those run-of-the-mill quarterbacks that can get it done when needed. But when the chips are down, you need someone better. And Malik Willis is going to be your future.
Well, hopefully. We shall see. If they invest in Malik Willis, they have a good chance.
Yes.
But right now, in order to win now, probably Tannehill gives them their best chance. But obviously, Derrick Henry gives them their best chance.
Yeah, it's Derrick Henry or bust.
So, with that being said, you want to make some picks, Chris Paul?
Yeah, let's make some picks for the week.
Yeah, let's make some picks for the week. Let's start with the Thursday night game. The Philadelphia Eagles going to Houston to play the Texans. Who you got? Who you got?
Philly. Philly looks unbeatable, and Houston is not going to be the team to put the blemish on it.
It's always sunny in Philly.
It's always sunny in Philly. We're going Philly. Next game, we got Los Angeles Chargers and the Atlanta Falcons.
Ooh.
Interesting game.
This is an interesting game. Yeah, I'm actually going to take the Falcons. They've been really good at home, and they just score points at home. And I don't know why the Chargers, every time I want to believe in them, they've
been playing real bad this
They're
game.
so inconsistent. I'm going to take Atlanta this game.
You see, I want to do the Chargers, but I like what I've been seeing out of Atlanta as well. So I have to go with Atlanta. Miami and Chicago.
Miami. They after the trade deadline, they are ready to win now, and it starts with Chicago, who is saying we would rather win next year.
Yeah, this is one of those complete mismatches where one team doesn't belong on the field with the other. Miami is going to make a deep playoff run. Chicago is going to look for a lottery pick at this point in time. So it's going to be a complete opposites match. Miami's going to win this game, and they're going to win by more than 2 possessions.
Mm-hmm.
Carolina and Cincinnati. Another interesting one.
This is the battle of the big cats, the big cat battle, as they say. But let's. I'm going to give it to Cincinnati. They just can't really do it against Cleveland for some reason, and the elite pass rushers. But Carolina's looking a hole, like just basically. It's a sinking ship, and they're just trying to sell all the chairs off the Titanic. Like they're just looking at like everything must go at this point. I think Carolina will give them a fight, but I think ultimately Cincinnati's going to win.
I mean, I have no inclination to think that Carolina's going to win this game. Cincinnati is better across the board in every way. The one thing that hurts is Jamar Chase not being in. That hurts.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I have to go with Cincinnati again. We're on the same page again. Detroit and Green Bay.
Who do you think? Who's going to play worse?
That's exactly what this game is. It's who plays worse and which Aaron Rodgers comes out.
Yeah.
If the Aaron Rodgers of old comes out, it's going to be Green Bay by 3 possessions. But if the Aaron Rodgers of today comes out, it's going to be like a field goal, touchdown difference, and it's going to be a coin toss as to who.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with Detroit. I feel like they're just more entertaining.
They are more entertaining. I'm going to go with Green Bay because we've seen it before where Green Bay loses a big stage game, and then they play the Bears in Detroit the next week, and then they win that game, and then it's like, oh, okay, they're back in it. So I'm going to go with Green Bay. I probably shouldn't go with Green Bay, but also Detroit has the worst defense in the league, so
I probably shouldn't go with Detroit, but Green Bay is just playing like the worst I've ever seen.
Yeah, so this game is not going to be.
This game is ugly.
This is going to be ugly.
Las Vegas and Jacksonville.
Oh, speaking of the uglies, oh my god. I can't pick the Raiders after last week. I'm going to go with the Jags. Both teams are really struggling right now. Both teams need a win for just morale purposes.
A little bit.
Just to feel good. Watch they tie.
Vegas has to put points on the board to feel freaking morale. Being blown out by 24 points. Give me a break. Jacksonville got a whole bunch of issues too, though. This is another game of who plays worse.
Yeah.
This is ugly.
I'm taking the Jags. Who are you taking?
I'm going to take the Jags as well. I can't vote the Raiders.
Not this week.
No. Indy, New England.
I'm going to take New England. Sam Ellinger played okay last week for the Colts, but Belichick against young quarterbacks, he eats them alive. So, and in Foxborough, I'm taking New England.
Bill Belichick against a young quarterback at home. No, New England's going to win all the way. And this is going to be another 2-possession game. 2 possessions or more. It's going to be ugly. Buffalo and the Jets.
This is going to be another 2-possession game, but I'm taking Buffalo over the Jets. Like we said before, the Jets are not winning this game.
No, the Jets are absolutely not winning this game. It's going to be Buffalo by 2 or more. Moving on to Minnesota and Washington.
I'm going to take Minnesota. I think Washington will actually put up a fight. I don't think this will be a blowout, as we think. Minnesota's better at home, but Washington can fight. Minnesota will ultimately win, though.
Yeah, this is not going to be a 2-possession game. This is going to be a 1-possession game. Washington could even squeeze the upset, but I think I'm going to have to agree with you that Minnesota is just a more consistent pace. But I saw today that Chase Young is back on the watch to come back in to play.
Okay, that's good.
So he's off of injury reserve and he's started his the 21-day practice role.
Okay.
So he should be back soon.
Okay.
Hopefully. Seattle and Arizona.
Seattle, man, they're riding hot. Geno Smith.
I'm going to go with Arizona on this one.
Yeah?
Yeah, I like Arizona for this one. I liked what I saw from Arizona last week, even though it wasn't pretty on the scoreboard. So, this is going to be more of an evenly matched game than I think people understand.
It's a divisional game. Anything can happen.
Yeah, I like this. I like this game. Rams and Tampa.
Who you got? Who you got? I know you're flipping the coin in your head. I see it.
I'm going to go Tampa.
Okay.
I think Tampa's offense is a little bit better than that defense this year when it comes to pass rush. Like their pass rush will always be great, but their secondary and that against the Bucs offense, I think the Bucs have that.
I'm going to go with Tampa as well.
It's hard to vote against Tampa at any given point. Even
I feel like this team is now really feeling the urgency because you go 3-6. That's tough.
you're in some trouble.
This is an elimination game, and because both teams are just not playing well, and I think that against each other, again, they're it's kind of like a mirror match. Both their flaws are the same, but I'm gonna give it to Tampa. I just think that they can get it done. Maybe we'll see.
It's gonna be another game of who plays worse.
Yeah.
Tennessee and Kansas City prime time. This game I'm excited for.
Ooh, tell me who are you thinking?
I'm gonna go with Tennessee on this one.
You go with Tennessee?
Yeah.
Oh shit!
I'm gonna go Tennessee on this one. My hat's on for Derrick Henry. I think he's gonna run all over them. And hopefully Malik Willis plays.
I think if he does play, it will be even more of a Chiefs victory. I think Tannehill gives them the best chance to win this game, but I'm going to go with the Chiefs. It's the King versus the Kingdom. King Henry versus Chiefs Kingdom.
That's right.
And
in Arrowhead.
In Arrowhead, and as great as Derrick Henry has been playing, Mahomes is looking to be MVP this year. So I just can't go against Mahomes right now.
Hey, I respect it. And then last but not least, it's Baltimore and New Orleans.
Be more, baby. Be more. Charm City.
Yeah, be more.
Yeah, we should.
The Ravens need to be more. Yeah, I'm going to go Baltimore as well. Please just beat the hell out of Andy Dalton.
I hope Roquan Smith gets some sacks on him.
Yeah, I'd hope so. All right, guys. There you have it. There's our picks for the week. Leave a comment if you agree, disagree. Please like, subscribe. And if you guys are interested in coming on for an interview, please inbox either myself or John for your emails, and we will set something up scheduling-wise.
Hey, we'd love to have you. We'd love to talk about football because, hey, just like this week, there's a lot of great games ahead of us.
This is a great second half of the season. Trade deadline is out. The rosters are set. And playoffs are right around the corner.
Oh, and I'm excited, brother.
Can't wait.